Google could spot garbage just like you could spot garbage. And that's where people go wrong. They don't want to see. They don't ever look at really what's being done. They trust that whoever's doing it is doing what they're supposed to be doing. But a lot of people end up losing a lot of money that way.
Welcome to Solo to CEO. We're sitting here with David Konigsberg. David, tell me what you do.
So we have a marketing agency, full service marketing agency for the past 15, 20 years. We've been helping service businesses find ways of acquiring new customers. So be it from paid ad channels like Google AdWords and Facebook to being able to understand what their messaging is so that they could effectively attract the right people so that they don't have to get the wrong clients and go through the experience of the challenges that come along with bad clients. In order to grow, you need the right clients who you repeatedly help, and that brings more of the same.
Okay, cool. So how do you go about making sure they get not just clients, but the right clients?
So, it really starts from understanding the puzzle. That I call it a puzzle because it really is. When you're a business owner, it's a puzzle to understand what it is that you actually do. What are you doing differently than other people? The way you deliver it, and then who likes that flavor that you created. And when they understand that, you know how to position them in the market, you know how to brand them, you know how to target the messaging to the right people that gets you the type of people that you want, who pay more, who are not looking for price, who aren't looking for a commodity. They're looking for someone who delivers something a little bit special. And that's where it starts. And then from there, we develop a strategy of which channels will bring them the right people.
Because ultimately, that's what everyone's looking for. People that value them specifically, what they do, and aren't looking for a discount.
Listen, we're all Jews. We all appreciate a good price. But as you go through business, you realize that, I guess it's a little bit cliche, but going cheap is more expensive in the long run.
Cheap and expensive out.
And that's it. So it's better sometimes to find the right guy who's going to help you in the way you need to be helped and pay a little extra than the cheapest guy who...
100%. And what kind of businesses? You said service businesses, but more specifically, what kind of businesses do you service?
So from accountants to, there used to be, it's funny, it used to be accountants weren't allowed to do any marketing because it showed that they weren't successful. And lately there's been a shift in that. I guess there's some one or two accounting firms that paved the way, but it's become more acceptable now to actually go and solicit business.
Oh, it wasn't like a legal...
It wasn't legal. It was almost like certain fields, there was a stigma around it. So law firms broke it first when they started trying to find people, who are in an accident and things like that. But accounting firms are now starting to advertise.
I think lawyers used to be legally not allowed to market themselves.
Right. Yeah. So we find ourselves with service businesses, from creative agencies to professional services. There's a gamut.
The gamut.
Yeah.
Medical, construction.
So we do some medical. We have a couple of healthcare clients, from like wound care to ABA to all sorts of different services, to kitchen cabinet people who are selling kitchen cabinets. But it's really a service they're selling more than the product itself.
Absolutely. That's what I say. When it's when it's service centered, when it's more focused on the people than the product, then that defines a service business. Amazing. So how'd you get into this? Right, you said this was 15 years, 20 years?
Yeah, so it's probably 15, 20 years. It started out, I was working for Ira Zlotowicz at Eastern Union. It gave me my first job, as he gives many people their first jobs.
Same
and Ira
here.
has something very interesting about him. He lets people learn on him. So he'll give you an opportunity to try things that other people won't give you the opportunity. And I was blessed with that role. I started as an underwriter, actually. And I moved into, I was doing their IT. I was doing so many different things in the company that needed to get done. By the time I was done, I had a resume, like 4 pages of things that I could possibly do, because I've done and I touched so many different things. And there was somebody who had a company called Optimal Targeting, and they were looking for someone to do paid ads. And I'm like, you know what? One of the many things I did was paid ads, and I got the job. And then over time, I ended up taking over the company, and they ended up pursuing other projects, and I morphed it into what it is today.
So you have initially came into this company as an employee, and then built yourself up.
So I had a learning curve to move from the guy who does the work, the technician, to business owner. I read the books of E-Myth and these type of things. And it was a journey for me to wear a different hat and learn how to transition away from being the guy who does the work, which I think most of us have done at some point or another.
And how many guys are you now?
Now we have 10 employees.
And does Ira know that he's responsible for where you are today?
I think so. I've worked with Ira a couple of times, but I hope he listens to this and gets to hear it.
Well, I'm meeting with him today. I could pass it on.
Please do.
So what happened next? So you came into this company, and we kind of fast forwarded to where we are today. But let's open it up a little bit.
So we started off doing Google Ads, and then I found our clients were coming to us and they couldn't find anyone they trusted to do SEO. So I'm like, what is this SEO business? I spent about a year learning it. And then we started offering it to our clients, saying like, we could do this, just really more about honesty and transparency, which wasn't very common in the SEO world. And we started doing that. And then as SEO shifted to be more content, we went to content, shifted to more infographics and viral content, we went there. When social media, we went there. And we ended up building out a lot of different branches in the company until I had a client. I remember there was an Amazon business. They came to me to do social media marketing. We were doing influencer marketing at the time. And I said, okay, so what am I going to say? Like, so Kim Kardashian or whoever it is going to say about your business that's going to make them come and buy your product and not the 7 others that are right next to it on Amazon. So they said, well, we don't really have a differentiator. We don't really have what to say. So I said, well, that's what branding is. Go to a branding company. I sent them to 2 different branding companies, and they came back after spending $100,000. And I remember it vividly. They brought me a box, gorgeous box, slogans and taglines on the outside. And I opened it up, and it was the same thing inside that it was before. And I'm like, okay, so how does the outside connect to the inside? They said, well, it doesn't.
What was it? What was this box?
So it was socks. They were selling socks, different colors socks and things from a factory in China that everyone had access to. And the branding was travel with us, some sort of vibe. I'm like, if you're selling the packaging and a gift, I hear. But if you're trying to sell the socks, there needs to be a storyline in there. So I'm like, why don't you say something like, each color represents a different place you might have been. So the brown one is Egypt, and make it more personal and emotional. And I found that the branding company didn't do that. So I felt like there was a disconnect in the way people do branding, that they were just trying to cosmetically make something pretty and tell a story without making the product itself connected to it. So I realized that there was a void in the market, and I started exploring what branding was, and I read probably 150 books.
They were telling a story, but they weren't telling their story.
Right. So I started reading like 150 books, and I realized that what it was.
150 books.
Probably about 150 books I read. I wouldn't say all of them were on branding, but I read whatever I can get my hands on. And I started picking and choosing from different pieces of the books that I liked, and I created my own way. And I realized that for products, somebody should have, or at least most of the time, there's a product designer who said, okay, this chair has 4 wheels. So when they went out to sell it, they can't sell it for 5 wheels. It had 4 wheels. So whoever it is that's doing the marketing had a much easier time selling it because they had a product with 4 wheels with benefits that were clear. And then they just had to tell that story. So I felt like for the most part, people got that pretty much okay. But for services, they crashed and burned because not only does the chair not have 4 wheels, it has 6 and 3 at the same time. Because the person selling it never decided how many wheels it has. So depending on who they're selling it to, they're adapting their sales pitch based on what possibly they could do as a service. Yes, I have the capacity to make it 3 wheels for you. I'll make it 3 wheels for you. But through that process, the employees don't have clarity of what they're selling. The market doesn't know who they're selling for. They're not investing always in the same 3-wheel product. They keep making it so that other people could experience it. And what I realized is that you can't market that product because they don't know what the product is. So we went and we created a system of how to get a business owner to decide what their product is, how many wheels it has, make sure everyone internally knows it has this amount of wheels, and make sure the public we could set an expectation for people who want to buy a product with 3 wheels, come to us. And if you ever get a chair that has 2 wheels, we'll take responsibility. We'll admit that it's a failure, and we'll fix it. And
it's a great analogy.
All right, so that's where guarantees and promises and expectations come in a service space, where I think that's the biggest challenge because you have partners. He's building a business with 2 wheels. The other guy's building a business with 4 wheels. They never decided how many wheels the product has. They're just selling. And they have their own groups of people that that make their 2 or 4 wheels, they're making competing businesses really in the same company. So it's hard when you're first starting out, but once you see that you're successful, you really need to sit down with someone and say, how many wheels does my business have, my chair have? And that's what we do for people. And once we do that, we can make that into promises and guarantees and real expectations internally and externally. That's where I find the real magic happens. We could position them because they could own what they are. But yeah, to me, it's the analogy of a product out of a service. And sometimes you'll meet people and they say, I don't want that. I want it to have no wheels. I'm going to sell whatever I can, whoever's sitting in front of me, and I'll put on those many wheels. And those people, they're not building
chair.
They're not building a brand. They're selling a commodity. And helping people see what they are really opens their eyes in terms of what they're marketing, how they're selling, how they're doing. And it gives them that puzzle piece that helps them soar. And that's what we've done for people. And that's where they've seen a lot of success.
So I imagine when you meet with, I love that analogy. I imagine when you meet with people for the first time, they come to you for branding or for whatever company footprint, marketing, whatever it is. So a company description, a write-up. So when they come to you, I imagine oftentimes they don't really even know what their brand is.
Yeah.
Like they don't know what they want to be. What's your first step in figuring that out with them?
So SD Rand actually has a funny saying for that. She says, sell them what they want, but give them what they need. So part of it is recognizing what do they need and what do they want. So if you're able to recognize that what they're saying, and that's part of the education process that we do. If people come to us, we explain, okay, you want a message, but before you have a message, you have to know what you want to say. And then we slow them down, we back them up, we try to get everyone, and then we could kick in our process. But the first step is recognizing that what they want is normally much further away from what you're selling. Because you recognize what they're going to need to execute. They need to get design, they need to do this. So it's really about helping them, guide them, be that guide to help them through the process, which is why we call ourselves Brand Hero, where we're really helping them find their strength, find their cape and put it on themselves, but then being their guide to become that better version of themselves that's clearer to who they're attracting.
So the two different companies that you have, is there a reason you didn't want to put it under one umbrella?
Amazing question. So I believe people only have room in their heads for somebody being good at one thing. And for them to believe you're good at 2 things, they need to see a real commitment to believe that it's possible, right? So we believe that Twitter and Tesla and SpaceX could all be good. Why? Because they're separate businesses with separate names, separate investors, separate focus.
Imagine a Twitter car.
Right? Even though Elon Musk is the one doing it. But like you said, if Elon Musk would come out with, a Twitter car, nobody would believe it's a real product because it's just an add-on. So in order to show people that what we created is a separate deliverable and a separate business in essence, we branched off and rebranded the branding company as Brand Hero and the marketing company as Optimal Targeting. And we support our clients, but we have 2 different distinct brands so that to help people recognize that we're able to deliver, to set expectations for each one that's maybe clearer. That would be the best way to put it.
It's kind of good. You have that advantage because you're a branding company. So
it makes it a little easier.
Figure out your own branding. So how's your team set up? What do you have your team mostly do for the most part?
So I have my team split. So I have a department that does Google ads and Facebook ads and Bing ads. I have a department that does web development. I have a department that does social media marketing. And then I have 2 writers and 2 designers that do more of the creative work and the branding, the type of work. And I would say, the brand strategies and the marketing strategies, and I make sure that it gets implemented. So I guess that's how I would say it's set up.
So you create the brand strategies and the marketing strategies. What else do you do?
I try not to do anything. So I've learned from eMyth and these things to if you're not working on your business, you end up working in your business. And then if you're working in your business, you end up not doing the things that you have to do. So I try not to do anything. I made that decision a couple of years ago. And now I put out fires. I support my team. And the only piece that I do is sales. But I don't do any outbound sales. It's really just inbound sales, helping people understand what they're buying. And then the strategy of what we do to make sure that everything is on, the strategic is on the way that I want it to be.
What does strategy mean? You mean that you meet with them on the initial session to work out a strategy?
Correct. Correct. So I'm guiding them through that initial strategy, how to figure out how I want them to be positioned, how we want, what side of the expectations we want to set, what their unique selling propositions are, who their target might be. So I work on that to help make sure that we're very clear on what it is that we're doing. I put the puzzle together because it has to make sense to me. If I can't understand, and I get this a lot, people come to me in their business, and I'm like, there's pieces in this puzzle that don't make sense to me, right? So either they're not making enough money, or there's no margin, right? Or they keep changing the product, and they haven't really figured out what it is that they're selling. So I help people try to figure out, what is your differentiator? Like, where do you put your time, money, and effort? I call that a disproportionate investment. So Costco has a disproportionate investment. They take returns 4 years later. Nobody does that. Why? Because it makes no sense. From a business perspective, it makes no sense. You'd lose your company. You'd lose all your money if you took back returns 4 years later. But if that's the thing that you do, right? If that's where you put your time, money, and effort in one area, you could afford to be normal in everywhere else, and in one area over-deliver where others aren't willing to do. That's the biggest strength that I see people make. So if you figure out what is the one area that you want to excel in, and everywhere else you could be mediocre, but this area you're going to be amazing, and you're going to attract people that want that. I bought a Dyson vacuum cleaner for $50 more than anywhere else because I know I could return it to them. So that becomes viable on a financial way if they go all in on one area. So helping people recognize that and show them that this is where you've been successful. Stop trying to appeal to all the market and find your people and build them a product that's over delivers in the way that they want it. Gets you far further than being a jack of all trades and just making sure that there are no areas that you're not a 6 in instead of a 5. It's much better to be a 10 in one area than a 6 in all areas.
Exactly. Much better to be a master of one. You mentioned Bing ads. Well, you mentioned a bunch of different, but you mentioned Bing. Is this a new thing because they're incorporating AI that everyone's talking about Bing? Or
no. Bing as a business model is here because they're owned by Microsoft. If they weren't owned by Microsoft, there would be no Bing, and I'll explain. So when you buy a computer, a default you get, if it's a Microsoft computer, which most people are, Windows, by default you're getting Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer, when you open it up out of the box,
by default
by default Bing. So if they didn't have that strategic alliance, they would have no business. But because most people are not tech savvy, they don't reinstall Chrome or Firefox. They use Internet Explorer, especially older people. And because they're not tech savvy, they don't change their browser to Google. They just use whatever's there. So they use Bing. You end up with a much older, non-tech savvy demographic on Bing, which it's smaller, but you could sell to them and you could be very profitable to them if that's your demographic.
So it's for a specific demographic.
Correct.
Like healthcare, for example. Can
be, yeah. And it's a part of the market that doesn't get as much competition, so it could end up being cheaper for some people on Bing. And it's so often overlooked, but it's definitely a channel that people should look at if they're maxing out on their Google and they're looking for another revenue stream. Bing is a great place to tap into.
And do you feel like things are changing now with the incorporation of AI specifically?
So things are changing everywhere in AI.
Specifically Bing, because they seem to really be behind in everything else, but ahead with AI when it comes to search engines.
So I haven't seen them create a product that rivals who's out there. They might be better than Google, but Google's not the person they have to beat when it comes to AI. Whereas you have the ChatGPTs, you have.
I don't mean beating other people in AI. I mean beating other search engines. Because they have Google Bard, but people are saying that Bing is better. I haven't really properly tested them out.
Right. So far, no one's really using AI as a search engine. They thought Alexa was going to become that. It never really did. I mean, it has a use case. Some people use it like that, but it never took over.
I'm waiting for that.
So AI hasn't either. And I think there's a long way to go before that happens, that Google could buy a company or just make something that competes. People sometimes come to us and they're like, the ads on top of Google, I don't want to do because nobody clicks on those. And my answer is Google makes $26 billion from people who click on those ads. So you might not click on it, but people are clicking on it. So they have $26 billion a year that they could take and figure out a way of making their AI work. And they don't have to be first to market. They just have to make sure that they have a product that competes. So I'm not worried about Google. Google will find a way to monetize AI and find a way to deliver a better thing. And if Bing or somebody else could come up and create a better mousetrap, so be it. I mean, Google really was founded on that. Yahoo had the dominance in the market. They were offered to buy Google. They said no.
What's Yahoo?
What's Yahoo?
Haven't heard that word in about 10 years.
So people who are old as me remember that before Google, there was such a thing called Yahoo, and they had the whole market. And before Netflix, there was Blockbuster. And they were offered to buy their competitors. And they said, no, it's not worth it. It's never going to take over. Kodak was offered to buy, to go into digital. They all had the opportunity. They just didn't do it. So Google will have the opportunity to either buy somebody who figured out AI or to create an AI killer. I'm not really worried about them. The question is, will they choose to say that that's what they are and go down that road and take that risk, or say that we're making too much money with what we have, I'm not willing to shut that down and now make AI as the default. And that, I guess, capitalism will dictate who wins that race.
So how do you feel AI is going to be affecting the future of your business, both from the optimal targeting side and from the brand hero side?
So we're already using AI. Google's already using AI in their algorithms. They took away a lot of control from us in terms of the way that we manage their Google ads. So a lot of it is automation, a lot of it is AI that we don't have access to. It's a black box, but they're getting nice returns on it. So that's moving that direction. And then regarding branding, design totally changed. I mean, Photoshop integrated an AI inside it that is much better than the Midjourney and the Leonardos and the AIs that people traditionally hear of. But that's just another Adobe product. So your regular graphic artist will just now have access to AI to work faster. So it's going to limit the pricing of design will come down, the quality will go up, and the speed that it takes will go much faster, just like all the other technologies have done.
Yeah, well, we're seeing that happen a lot now, where designers and I'm in the creative industry, so the people are able to produce a lot faster. So the salaries aren't necessarily going down. It's just that you're expected to produce more.
So what I think will happen is that when the bulk of the effort doesn't have to go into creating the video and editing it, then the bulk of the effort will go into the strategy behind it and the strategy behind the ads. And you'll end up working with a lot of strategists, which is great for us because that's where we've been positioning ourselves for years. And you're able to deliver a much better result if people could afford to pay for the strategy. The reason why people don't do a lot of strategy today is it costs a lot more money to do both the design and the strategy than just doing the design. And people don't recognize the value of it because they have limited budgets. But when you remove the obstacle of limited budgets, they still have money to spend. They'll just spend it now on strategy, being more effective in the conceptual or in the nuances of influence, right? But it used to be that if you made a video, you only got to make one because it's such a big thing. How could I make 20 for each personality type? But maybe now you could actually make 20 different videos for each personality type if it's just running it through an AI that takes the video that you made and morphs it to different target audiences.
Yeah, it's incredible what AI is doing. But it also means that if you don't adapt to AI, you fall behind very quickly. I saw it was a great line. It's all over the place. You've probably seen it also. It's that AI is not going to take over your business, but someone using AI will.
100%. Yeah, and now it's a buzzword and it's a fad, and a lot of people are investing in it. But it takes a lot of time and energy to figure out what's real and what's not real, what works and what doesn't work. And yeah, those that it's like with any new frontier. There's a lot of mining that needs to happen to find the gold. But once someone's successful there, everybody else will jump in and do it. So there are early adopters in every field. The question is how much time and effort people want to put into something before they commit to that's their direction. But every good business needs an R&D department. So for us, it's AI.
Right. So what are the main tools that you find helpful in AI?
So right now we're using a lot of ChatGPT. We're using a lot of Midjourney and Leonardo on the design side. We're building our own AIs. We're training our own modules to do unique type of things, as well as trying to figure out the right prompts and the right ways of getting the results that we need. But right now, those are, I think, the stars that I've seen, those three.
There's ChatGPT, Midjourney, Leonardo. What's that?
So Leonardo is like a Midjourney. It just gives you a different type of result. It's a little bit more flexible. You could build your own, you could train your own AIs. There's a community of other people that have trained AIs. And it gives you a little bit more of a distinct way of using it, more control. But in every field there has it. I mean, if you wanted to take this and chop it up into segments for social media, it used to be that's 3 hours of editing. Today, it's literally 3 minutes on an AI tool that will chop it up, rate which segment is the best, explain to you why, and give it to you with subtitles to send it out. So, I mean, it's saving people time in all areas.
We use a program that actually chops up our podcast episodes in like a minute. It's just, you see it chopping it up, and it chooses the camera based on the person speaking.
Wild.
It's wild. I mean, you still need a personal touch to it. You have to go over it afterwards, and we do that. But it's insane what is happening now. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah. So going back to, we were talking about SEO at the beginning of this talk. To me, SEO is something I never really was able to put a finger on. I understand you're optimizing your website and web copy to show up in the search engines. But at the end of the day, not a week goes by that I don't get an email from an offshore individual who wants a job that's going to transform my SEO and make me $1 billion. And my hunch is that it's going to do the opposite. So what can we ground that concept, SEO?
Yeah, so we have to break it up into two different things, right? So there's the on-the-site SEO, which is Google is looking for a website that has content that tell it what it should rank for. So you have to make sure it has the right keywords and content on the page that make you relevant, a good result for people for your audience. Technically, it has to get set up in a way that allows Google to read it properly and follows their rules, right? So you have the technical side, you have a content side that's on the website. So that today still exists, and it's very powerful, works really well. You're just making yourself more relevant. So blog posts, more content, just gives you more to be relevant for. The offsite SEO is the other part of SEO, which is basically a popularity contest that Google uses to decide if I should rank you or your competitor first. So who has links from quality websites that you would expect an industry person like you would get links from, and then it's a popularity contest. Oh, you got more links from New York Times. You got better quality links from your industry blogs that would make sense that you would be linked to. I'm going to put you higher. But then there's a third component that once Google actually puts you there, they test to see if you belong there. So they use user data, something called pogo sticking, where if a person clicks on a link and he doesn't find what he's looking for, he goes back to Google and he clicks the next one. So Google's like, okay, if enough people do that, they weren't happy with what they found. Which one did they stop at? Of all the 20, which one did they say, I found what I'm looking for? Oh, that was number 5 consistently? Okay, number 5 becomes number 1. And let's see if they stop at number 1 and they don't go to number 3. And when they see that user data, that for some reason, your website provides enough information, a good experience, enough trust that people feel like they found what they're looking for, they could stop Googling. Then Google says that's a positive signal. I want to rank that higher. So in the old days, SEO was not like that. SEO was really just who could manipulate Google the best, who could put the most guest posts, the most backlinks, and it was just manipulation. Google got smart. They used machine learning and AI to figure out what people really want. Because Google's ultimately trying to provide a better user experience for the people that use them so they don't go to Bing, right? So they got good at figuring that out and punishing people that do black hat tricks and things like that. So at this time, SEO is very hard to do cheap, because what you really need to do is you need to do it correctly, and you need to do all the things that Google are looking for that make you an authority, social signals, and it's become more expensive to fake those things than to do them real. So it's much cheaper for me to hire a PR person for $2,500 or $4,000 a month who gets me links from the top industry press than to hire an SEO to pay for those links. So that's why SEO industry changed a lot. Because if you could do it correctly and you do it properly, it's cheaper actually than doing it underhanded and manipulative. And that's what they wanted. And that really changed the playing field of SEO, where these guys who are claiming fly-by-night success, they can't deliver it. Because you have to do all the different components correctly in order to do it. And there's still people selling snake oil and they're still selling things, what I would say to those people is whoever you hire, make sure you get a list of what they're actually doing. Not the results, but what they did to get the results. Take a look at it. Are they buying the links? Are they violating terms and conditions? This website that is an Indonesian website for funny memes, does it make sense that they're selling tires on it? Is that a place that Google would want you to have a link to advertise your business? Does that make sense? And if you look at those links and it makes sense to you, then you're okay. But if you look at that and you're like, this is all garbage, Google could spot garbage just like you could spot garbage. And that's where people go wrong. They don't want to see, and they don't ever look at really what's being done. They trust that whoever's doing it is doing what they're supposed to be doing. But a lot of people end up losing a lot of money that way.
Yeah, it's an issue in general when you're hiring a company or a freelancer to do work on your company, whatever it is, whether it's branding, marketing, SEO, anything. It's very hard to actually really check up on them and make sure they're. First of all, you want to trust because you don't want to be that client who's micromanaging. But also, you don't really know what it means to trust or not trust, and what it means that they're, what it looks like if they're doing the right thing or not. So it's a big challenge. So I guess if someone's hiring a company to do SEO for them, what should they be looking out for specifically?
So they need a rank report. So a list of keywords that the company's trying to rank for.
I guess a step before that, actually. What should they ask the company first?
Oh, before they hire them.
Before they even hire them, and then once they hire them, what should they be asking them for?
So before they hire them, you have to really speak to references, and you really have to speak to a couple different companies and get a feel for what it is that they're claiming that they're doing. And you'll see very quickly, some people don't tell you what they're doing. Other people are very transparent about what they're doing. And you really have to educate yourself because people will take advantage of it. So the best way to do it is if you have references from the people and you spoke to that they were happy in the long term, that's always the best way to hire anybody in any field. And then you want to check up what they're doing, right? Once you hire them, you want to see, do I have a report of what they're doing, what it brought me? So that's the same thing with Google Ads or whatever it is you're doing. You want a report to see, is there progress? Go into Google Ads, look at the change history. What are they doing? Ask the SEO, show me a report. What did you actually do? Not just the rankings, but what did you do that made the rankings? Show me the things you built. Show me where my money went. And also you have to make sure that, let's say for Google Ads and things like that, you want to own the account. I have a lot of clients that came to us from other agencies and other places where they were held hostage, that they were never given access to their account. And when they left, they weren't allowed to take their account setup. So this guy had a Facebook account. He was running it, and he's like, I'm charging you $2,500 a month. I'm no longer doing anything for you, but you can't go anywhere because I have it all figured out, and it is on my account, not yours. So you want to make sure they build it on your account. You have access to everything.
That's crucial.
Make sure you have contracts, and then you want to also make sure that you take a look. There are some agencies that mark up the clicks. So Google charges them $1, they'll charge you $1.50, and then they'll charge you less on a management fee, but they're not telling you that. So you thought you were getting cheaper because your management fee is less, and you thought you were getting a good deal, but meanwhile, because you don't have access and they're doing it on their credit cards or they're paying shtick, you don't know how much they're actually spending to Google versus managing it. So you have to really take a look and make sure you're not being taken advantage.
What are some other scams that people do to look out for?
Lots of scams. A lot of, there's in the SEO world, there's a lot of scams, but people hire black hats sometimes to make it that. What you really want to just make sure is that the guy's not selling you that he's doing white hat and doing black hat. So take whatever the guy's doing, go to another guy and ask him, is this white hat? And they'll be very happy to throw the other guy under the bus to explain if they are or if they're not. I actually had that with one of our clients who we were doing Google Ads for. They brought us something from a reputable guy, and they're like, this is what he's doing. He claims that it's white hat, and it's not working. So I went through it, and I'm like, that's not white hat. Go back to the guy and try to negotiate something.
What does white hat mean? Legal?
So white hat means is that
following the rules.
There are things that Google allows you to do for SEO, and they encourage, and there are things that they don't. You can't buy links. But an example of something would be is that if you have a white page, you can't put white text on the white page so that Google sees text but the user doesn't, right? You can't do things that Google says you're not allowed to do because those are considered black hat tactics, that they rank you fast and quick, but for the long run, they're going to catch. That's what black hat is.
So that kind of answers my next question, which I'm going to ask anyway. But what are some of the dangers? It half answers this question. So what are some of the dangers? Let's say I went ahead and I hired someone who's emailed me a bunch of times and said he's going to change my life and business. And I go ahead and I hire him. What are some of the worst things that could happen from that hire?
So they could do things that damage your reputation in Google's eyes, so that either you'll get punished by Google, either short term or long term. And they could also do some shady tactics that you might not feel comfortable with. Like if you have a competitor, they might send bad links to the competitor to pull him down, to push you up, where you might not want to do that. You might want to only play a safe game where you only do good things on your own website to drive you up. You don't want to maliciously attack your competitor to bring him down. And they will, because they don't care, right? So those are some things that you have to look out for. And other things are really just short-term wins instead of long-term. They'll try to make their money fast and get out, and they don't care about burning the client. They don't care about their reputation. I just had a pool problem a year ago, and I brought in a guy who was not a company, just a freelancer type of guy, and he fixed the problem. He closed up the pool, and then it froze over the winter, and it cracked. The manifold cracked in the heater, and I called the guy up, and I'm like, "You didn't do a good job." He's like, "So, I'm not taking responsibility for what I did. I made my money. I'm out." So
did he actually say that?
Yeah, he was like, "I'm not paying $5,000 to fix your thing. You pay me $500 to close it. I'm going to pay $5,000 to fix it." I'm like, "Yeah, you took responsibility for closing it and draining the water. You didn't do it. So now you owe me." If they're fly-by-nights, it's because they're not going to take responsibility when things go wrong.
So let's talk about video. Do you incorporate video in your strategy?
So we do. Video is an amazing storytelling medium. It's an amazing way. People remember video probably more than any print or anything they see. It's a lot more compelling. You have a lot more opportunity to use humor and other things that people tend to remember more than just a flat image they pass.
Okay, what would you say are the pros and cons of using video in your marketing strategy?
So today, video tends to be a little bit more expensive to do it correctly. That would be the con. The pro is it tends to have better results if you use it correctly. Like, so if you're doing a retargeting ad on YouTube, a video does much better than a banner ad. If you're doing like WhatsApp statuses, video delivers much better results. A short commercial type of video. It allows you a lot more room to build up expectations and create a feel for, like, people say, even like I put a video on LinkedIn, people say like they have a much better impression of what it's like to work with me because they saw my face, they spoke to me, they feel like they know me from a video, but they don't get that from a text as much.
Okay, and why shouldn't someone do cheap video?
So maybe they should, but it really depends on what their goals are, right? So if their goal is to create strong messaging and strong positioning that they're, a better vendor, you're not going to get that from the cheap video. The cheap video will make you look cheap, and it'll make you look like you don't take pride in your work. It'll make you look like you can't afford a higher level video. So if you're trying to be the cheap guy, then maybe that's the better strategy for you. But if you're not selling on price, then you have to do what the people who aren't selling on price do. And that's, hiring better talent and doing it on a higher level. Where I find people make mistakes sometimes is that marketers sometimes try to fill the void in the market with what people want. And by doing that, they've decided what the market wants to hear for your industry. And they do you a disservice because like the way we do branding is really the opposite. We don't figure out the void in the market and then sell to that market. We figure out what you are and figure out who in the market wanted that. So by doing that, you're going to be able to be a better service for those people. The people who get it wrong, they go the other way around. They're saying the market wants to hear this, become this. And you could only sell that one time, right? I don't mind taking competitors. I have 4 kitchen cabinet companies we do marketing for. And I don't mind having them all as competitors because each one is different in the way that they sell and they attract different people. But if I were to say, what's the void in the market? What do they want to hear? I would be selling the same thing to all of them. I would have a conflict of interest. That's where I find the biggest challenge is when you use cheap. What they're really doing is they're going for the low-hanging fruit of what the market wants to hear that gets you an immediate rise, but not necessarily success. Like in print ads, you could say something very clever, get a lot of people talking about it, but it doesn't turn into business because it was just a flash in the pan of a witty thing that you did. Sometimes cheap videos are like that. right? So maybe if you need to explain what you do, a video could do that in a cheap way, but the real place that it shines is when you're telling stories and setting expectations of how you're different than your competitors. So I say that a good video or a good ad would be is that if you could take your logo off it and put your competitors on it and everything stays the same and it's perfect, then it's not good because it works for everybody. It doesn't work for you.
It's a cookie cutter video.
Right. But if that video has enough of your own personality, style, positioning, and enough of the way that you differentiate yourself with the expectations you set, then the other guy can't use it because he doesn't have that personality. He's not setting those same expectations. He hasn't built his company to deliver the same way that you deliver. It would hurt him. It wouldn't help him to have a video that sets a wrong expectation. So that's where I think the professional level videos and where it's worth it to invest in video or marketing or in anything you do is to get that well, because you'll find that you'll have a better ROI. Like my pet peeve is people bring me a website that was made for $3,000 on Fiverr and they want me to spend $100,000 a month sending Google ads to it. I'm like, let's just go through your ROI. If you could get a 20% increase in ROI from having a $5,000 website or $20,000 website, to give you a 50% increase in ROI because it was done that much better, you save so much money over the long run in Google ads and you're so much more competitive. But people compartmentalize, they don't look at the big picture and they end up saying, okay, for this thing I'm going to be cheap on and the next thing I'll spend a lot of money on. But they don't realize it all kind of builds off each other.
Yeah. So do you ever see people, getting a really cheap video and then spending a lot of money to market that?
All the time.
And what do you say to those people?
Those people are maybe they don't believe, right? They don't believe maybe that they could get their ROI the other way. And maybe for them, they're just testing their waters. They know they're not going to get a good return, but they want to test it, and that's fine. But I always say, if you're going in with your eyes open, I don't have any problem. Like you want to go use an inferior video and you're going to spend some money on it to see what it does, no problem. But if you're going into it thinking that it's a $50,000 video and you're going to get $50,000 worth of results for it, then you're just deluding yourself. And that's where I've seen people go wrong. A guy came to me, he says he wants me to market, he brought me $10,000. He says he wants me to market a competitor to Google. He made a search engine, he's going to be the next big thing. He did the math, if he gets 1% of the population, he's a multi-billionaire. He wants me to market it. I said, your product's not good enough to compete with Google. You don't have the distribution channels. You can't. He says, well, I want to do it. I think you can. So I said, let me do you a favor. Give me $1,000. I'll spend $1,000 worth of traffic to your website. If you get one person who uses it for more than 6 minutes and like they really love it, then great, we'll continue. And nobody used it for more than like 3 seconds. And he came back. He said, well, I was desperate and I borrowed the money. And I didn't want to go into it with my eyes open. I wanted to believe that this was going to be it. And
That's
thank
so
you.
Scary.
Thank you for not, spending all that money, because I could have made a lot of money on that.
That's really scary. I mean, people borrow money for things and then go into it with their eyes closed.
So that's really what I help people do. This is what I believe your struggles are. This is where I believe your challenges will be. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but be prepared for the challenges. Like I have a great story. We had a client of ours came to us with an investor. He's like, I'm opening a business that's going to compete with Airbnb. We're going to do Airbnb for swimming pools. I'm like, it's a great idea, but these are your challenges, right? You have liability issues. If you do too good, Airbnb will just open up a category on their site for swimming pools. These are your challenges. And I laid out a couple of things. And the investor's like, it's not worth it. We're not doing it. They got up and left. A week later, a guy came back, him and his partner, said, I have a brilliant idea. Airbnb for swimming pools. I'm like, oh, I've heard that before. I laid out all the challenges I said for the other guy. He said, okay, we'll deal with those challenges when we face them. His name is Swimply. He just got an investor from Airbnb.
Airbnb just invested in him?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they open a Swimbnb?
They didn't feel like it was worth it. But at the end of the day, he solved the problems. The problems were there. He just solved them. But my job was to show him the problems. So you go in with your eye open. If you're up for it, great, pivot. But I guarantee the other guy who wasn't ready to pivot and make things work and adapt, the second he hit the wall would shut down. Right? That one lawsuit that comes in from a liability issue, they'll shut down. So sometimes my job is just to, from experience from doing things for so long, give them what I believe is realistic to expect from it. And sometimes I do it and people go and use somebody else and say, you were right, but we made money from here, so I made it worth it. And I'm like, I can't control that. I rather give you the the bad and the good and let you make a decision of what you want to do, than pretend that you're a nail and I'm a hammer and try to sell you, and then 9 out of 10 don't work and that one time might work. So that's my approach to business.
So tell me more about your branding product that you have, Brand Hero.
Yeah, so what makes us really different and unique on the branding level is, I would say 3 things, right? One is that you already heard that we're not looking for the void in the market to make you into something you're not. We're figuring out what you are and figuring out who wants that. Now, sometimes you'll find that maybe you're not cut out for the market and that's why you're not successful, but you're better off pivoting to something else than trying to be what you're not. The other thing that we do is that we try to understand on the personality, on the emotional level, the things that really make your business tick. And we make a puzzle. It's like a brand ladder. So we figure out on the personality level, what repeatable process on a personality do you tend to lean towards, right? So you have a chart on the wall of different archetypes. One might be a ruler, one might be a hero, one might be a sage. Figure out which one does your company embody. Like, you'll find that on a motivational level, you're always trying to solve someone's problems, or you're always trying to be the most knowledgeable. And you'll find on a process level, the way you want everyone to solve a problem is by hiring experts, or maybe by you be the expert, or maybe by being creative, or maybe by exploring different options. There's different ways that I find that if I use this personality, I end up getting a certain result. And then there's always a perception the way you want the world to see you. So if you could understand those 3 things, the motivation, the process, and the perception, you could say which of those things create what strengths. And those, each one create a unique selling proposition, and each one then attracts a different target market. And if you could figure that out, then you could create slogans and taglines for each one of those, and you're able to sell to each one of those people much deeper because you understand the whole puzzle behind it. So I think that we do that exceptionally well. And then the last part is, I've been in business for 20 years, and I'm not a writer or a designer. Most people who do what I do are writers. And they approach the problem as a writer would, and they approach the problem as a designer might be. And because I'm neither of those, I hire those, I have that in-house, I have a unique view as a business owner and as a business consumer. So I look for, would I buy your product? As a business owner, right? Would I buy your product? And as a business owner, knowing what I did to build my business, did you do what you needed to do to build your business? And reading all the books, I'm able to have a much different viewpoint than a typical writer would, who took a course, has been in business for 1 year, never built anything themselves, and then they're telling you how to build your business. So I find that we're able to deliver a much better result because of my experience of dealing with so many PPC clients and understanding the levers of business in order to be successful and knowing what to look for. I'm a little bit more like a business consultant who does marketing for people.
And that makes the product very unique because you're not just trying to write something up. You're building something that's going to actually make them succeed.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's I'm the litmus test, and I'll call them out. I'm like, that doesn't work. I won't buy that. Your consumer wouldn't believe that. So I challenge them a lot to be better by helping them see what the client would see.
You wouldn't build up a whole company description and branding report on something that's not going to actually make them any money.
Correct.
That itself is unique.
Yeah, and I've had people come to us and be like, okay, this is what we are. And I'm like, I can't help you. Because I had it with a telecom guy, right? He was selling telecom, and another guy who was selling promotional items. And I'm like, what are you doing differently? And when it boiled down to price, I'm like, but are you the cheapest? No. But I'm trying to sell on price. And I don't have any supply chain efficiency. I have nothing that makes me cheaper. I'm just willing to make less money. And I'm like, that type of business model, it's very hard to set an expectation in the market that you're going to do that, because the second you'll be a little bit successful, you can't do that anymore, right? You can only be cheap when you're willing to do all the work, and you're willing to not have any staff and not have any risk and not make enough money. You're going to think, okay, tomorrow I'll make the money. But there's always going to be a guy who's going to start out who's going to try to be that way. And I try to explain to them that's not a business. A business, maybe this is important for your viewers. A business, what it really is because of the way I do something, either on the personality or where I invested my time, money, and effort, I have margin above a commodity that I'm able to charge and people are happy to pay for because I'm doing something unique. If you can't say that, if you can't charge that extra and people are willing to pay extra because of what you're unique in, then you're a commodity. Because you're not doing something that people are willing to pay extra for. All the businesses in the world, the biggest brands, they have that. It's a margin that the brand allows them to charge. Gucci, if you were to buy the pocketbook, it's $1,000. I'm being nice. They're selling it for $20,000. Why? Because the brand stands for $20,000 worth of value. So you have to have a brand when you create something, and the brand is, what expectation are you setting that others aren't? Are you actually fulfilling it? And do you take responsibility for it? Which means if the UPS truck doesn't come, and you're priding yourself on delivery on time, how do you react? Do you say, well, we shipped it out on time, it's UPS's problem, you didn't get it, right? Or do you say, no, we pride ourselves that you're going to get it on time, we're going to find another carrier, or we're going to go talk to UPS, or we're going to refund your order? That's the difference that a brand creates, because you take responsibility for the expectations you set. Like I said, my pool guy, right? I'll pay extra now for a pool guy that will take responsibility that if it breaks, because I realize that the risk of losing that $5,000 is worth paying $600 up front to have a guy who actually takes responsibility for it.
Right.
So I help people try to figure that stuff out for their brands.
The extra $50 for the Dyson at Costco.
That's it.
See, I'm listening.
Right. Yeah. So you could ask yourselves in your business, what would people spend an extra $50 on? And what are you actually delivering to make that worthwhile for people? And that becomes your promise or your guarantee.
Before I land the plane, are there any other words of wisdom that you want to share?
We could sit here all day talking. No, I think you get a good picture of what we do. I'm hoping that it'll be helpful for you guys listening out there. I would offer any of your viewers, if they want to sit down for a free, I will not sell, I don't sell. That's an interesting one. I'll explain that in a second. A 30-minute consultation.
I'll take one.
Happy to sit down and help you out. But I believe that sales today is not what it used to be. It used to be, it was all about the closer and all about what manipulative tactics can you say to catch the guy off guard, to give you an extra minute, to push him down a funnel to get him to close. It's not like that today. Today, people are looking for somebody that they align what they do well with what you need done well. And if you could do that in a conversation, you sell. And that's how we sell, right? So I don't go out there and solicit much business. I help people figure out the problem that you have. These are the things that we do that might solve the problem. Do you feel like this solves the problem that you're trying to do? If so, let's do it. If not, don't do it. And I guide people in solutions that help that. And that's why I do so many different things, because I don't want to be a hammer and everybody becomes is a nail and I'm going to sell them that one product. I want to be able to say, you know what, for you, maybe this makes more sense. Maybe you shouldn't do that. And if I only had one product, I would sell everybody that one thing. So the sales approach that we take is more of an alignment of value. And I look for people that struggle with the problem that I could fix. Because if they don't have the problem and they hire me, they're not happy clients. I've had that. Okay? They never identified they had a problem that we were being hired to solve. And therefore, they just feel like they spent a lot of money and wasted money and time because they never appreciated the problem, even though they had it. So you have to make sure that they know what they're buying and that they're very clear on how it's going to help them before they start, because just because they buy it isn't the win. They have to appreciate what you're going to do for them, or else they're going to be bitter afterwards. What did I spend my money on? What did you do for me? I never got anything out of it. So that's my parting words of wisdom.
Sometimes the biggest losses play themselves out as a win in the beginning. It's like, oh, we just got this big client, and then a year later you're thinking back at that moment when you thought you were excited to get it, and you're like, oh, my biggest nightmares came from this relationship. So it's the line goes, the best, some of the best clients are the ones we didn't take on.
100%. So
anyway, thank you very much for taking your time out of your day for this, and we've got a lot of insights from this. And tomorrow, same time.
Looking forward.